today I've invited here Lars-Erik Holter, Tal Ness, and Tom Janicic to have this conversation with me. Like every day, I'm going to read the theme that Øystein and we sort of choose as a sort of starting point for the debate, and it is this theme of the day. The actor worked with text and speech and its development from past to future times. Very open sort of thing. You want to take? Want to read it again?
Just focus on that.
Focus on that. Yes, don't take sort of Pindaric things. What do we mean with that? It's as Lars-Erik was presenting, there is a tradition of working with text, which we think it's a bit underspoken. We usually speak about acting techniques, and then there is this technical work where we learn as actors about text and speech and how you breathe and things like that. But we don't really take in how it affects the acting. At the same time, there's so much development in the text world and so much demand for actors that can come with new creative ways of working with text. So the way of dealing with text is very, very in the focus of the skills and the part of being creative as an actor. So we would like to sort of have a conversation about that, how we can make the skill work with text have the same relevance and importance than classical acting training, and how we can sort of see what kind of new strategies we need to develop within the work with text, so that we can sort of create actors or help actors to find strategies to work with new kind of text. So that's why we sort of have chosen this topic. I have written down a lot of things that I would like to talk about with you guys today, but let's see where we can start from. And as every day, I would like you also to interrupt and create a dialogue with each other, right? But to start from you, Lars-Erik, in your book, and I think this is the point, because in your book, you sort of you could have written that book alone, okay? But you decided to invite other people, and when you invited other people, some people had some expertise that could sort of be in the sort of same family as the work you do. But you also invite some other colleagues that could give a contribution that could expand this. So there was already there an idea that I need to try to sort of communicate that there are many ways to train an actor and work with text. So I would like you to sort of expand a bit more about that, why you choose these other people, what kind of other strategies you wanted to include. And the other question is about the fact that I would like to talk a bit more about the relationship between when the actor is improvising and then moving from improvisation to the text. Because I find this integration one of the main problems in training, So, I mean, what happened when you sort of conceived your book and you thought, I don't want to write it alone?
I'm writing in the introduction that what I just talked about, that you can approach text in very, very many ways. And I discovered that if you do that and then just give one way, then the book is not fulfilled, kind of. So I thought I really need more people so that we could get a broader perspective on the book. And the book is it's mainly written because all the knowledge about text work has been going from pedagogue to pedagogue, and it's never been written down. So that was one of the reasons that we had to write it down and try to define what are we going to learn. But at the same time, I thought that it's important that the students that read this book not only hear that, there are many ways, and that they're not being presented for it. So that's why the book is written a year ago, and it's probably already old, because so many things are happening. I couldn't. I thought I can't describe all those other ways to work with text as good as the guys that I invited.
Mm.
So so for the book should be inviting people to have an open mind,
Mm.
and at the same time invite people to actually take some skills
Mm.
and use them.
But do you experience, you're in charge of the organizing the text teaching here, but you have a background as director, you direct some of the productions here, you do some of the training, so you have sort of your presence is in different aspects of the training of actors. Do you experience, and maybe sometimes we relate to the work with the text as a sort of just a technical skills way class, or do you feel that, I mean, don't you think we should sort of have more respect for the creative, to communicate that there's a very creative aspect of working with text and not just some things we have to learn as actors? What do you think about this?
Well, I think what you said,
Mm.
that you can find so much pleasure and joy of working with the text, and that part will. I mean, um, when I had my director's training with Irina Malashevskaya, she didn't emphasize the importance of the text at all. She just said that if you can find the right situation and you could give the right goals for the actors, then the text is going to come out as necessary, as the way that it's necessary. But I don't think that's true. I think, I mean, the minute you get a camera, everybody probably experienced Christmas Eve and somebody starts filming, and you know that camera is there. And then you lose all your logic, and you lose your body, and you lose your thoughts, and you lose everything, because the only thing you can think about is how am I gonna look in that movie that is made right now. So so we have to learn to walk, and we have to learn how to think, and we have to learn how to use our voice, and we also have to learn how to speak again. It just means being more aware of what you're doing, what you're saying.
Because in the way that one works sometimes with the Stanislavski system, the way it's organized with Tostonogov, it's very sort of you sit and you analyze and you break down and the events and the goals and all the actions and evaluations and this, and then you take these events and you go down and you do the improvisations, where you just improvise some words, right? And you do the physical actions, and then you move towards the text, And I have experienced also from my training and also many places that there is a sort of, it's a sandwich that doesn't sometimes go up in the right way.
I totally agree
You
with
arrive to put the top on top, and it's too big. When you make the sandwich and then it falls, right? And it's and you can't really eat the good things that you thought were inside. So there is this, and then all of a sudden we need to make this text to have the same life that we found in this fantastic improvisation. And I know you are both an expert of the text work and an expert of this methodology. How do you see this integration between, moving between improvising, finding these physical actions, and using
Well,
the
actually,
text?
I've started to jump that sequence because I experienced it as an actor myself, and when at first we improvise without words, because if you do that, you obviously have to do something. You can't just sit there. So that's a good way of exploring the scene, and it's a good way for the actors to get to know the scene and get to know what they want to do and stuff. And then you start using your own words. But I find that very difficult because I already know what is written, and then my mind starts juggling between my own words and the writer's words, and then it gets blurry somehow. So I started to actually jump that, I even, not in school, but when I do productions, I even ask the actors to learn the lines. Just, if you know the lines when we come there, we're going to get further. And then some actors are very, very reluctant to do that, because if I can't do that, I can't learn the lines because I'm going to learn them in the wrong way, and then it's going to be stuck. Well, I think an actor should have that agility that I can learn this, but I can be aware of. Let's say I choose something. I say you have to choose something. So the text means something when I speak with you, but I also have to be open to change that text, because you're obviously going to do something else the next day, and then I have to have that agility and be able to change. But I still know the words, and I've experienced that you actually can get further
with that.
I'm not saying that the other way is wrong or bad, because a lot of people work that way and make great performances. But for me, it takes some time to actually understand how to say those words, and why should my work as a director wait? I have to wait because they don't know the lines, and they're thinking about the lines, and I can't say anything. Maybe you should do a little bit more of that. Yeah, but I don't know the lines yet, so I can't do that yet. I'm going to start acting 2 weeks before the premiere night, the opening night. Then I'm going to start acting. So just get off my back for 6 weeks, and then you can tell me.
Yeah, I understand.
So it's a dilemma, actually. But I think that we should train actors to, you can learn these words from this piece of paper, and I can use it any way.
This flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility, and not being stuck just because you learned the line.
To me, when I hear you, it's about using creativity. Understand that everything you do, it's about creativity, and see all the technical things also as creative things, not just as tasks. But I want to ask something to Tali, because I want to also talk about, when you talk about future development of text, I also want to, I would like you to say something about the relationship between the skills the actors learn when it comes to text and connected to aesthetics. Do you feel that there are some aesthetics that are implemented in actors, the way actors relate to text, that can be in the way they work with new text problematic because they don't see other aesthetical possibilities of working with text? What is your experience with that, also as a dramaturg?
Well, it's kind of a leading question, Jean-Luc. I mean, when you say it, of course you are, in a way saying it, that there is a connection, right?
Yeah, well, I'm implying.
Yeah, you're implying that, and I think obviously it is, and it's everywhere, yeah. But I think that in our culture we're not that geared towards understanding our aesthetics. It's not a culture. We might be very good with saying I, but we're not very educated or aware of our aesthetics, right? We take them for granted. So in a way, like when I talked at my little interview, I was talking about demasking, to do a demasking of your own ethics. But I guess we also have to do a demasking of our aesthetics. And I think taste also is a part of it. And of course fashion. I mean, theater is very fashion-based, you know. There's like waves of aesthetics just going through the theater, and you can it's like contagious, yeah. It's like it starts one point and all over, it spreads everywhere. It's a way of doing the sets, or a way of the costuming, and all of a sudden everybody has a wig, you know. And then in a way also we start quoting each other, yeah. And quoting each other is also a way of tapping each other on the back, saying I understood what's good. And it's very important, I think, for an actor when approaching a text to realize those things, and to realize that that's also in the texts. my experience with young actors coming straight from their education is that they're very, very confused and very eager to start to work, and also because of that, both maybe stuck in ideas they have gotten because they need that to cling to, like a crutch, but also very confused about what it means in the real life. So that's why my main goal, actually, after I sort of entered theatre, is to get the playwright into the theatre, and for actors and playwrights to work together with the text and demask it together. And then
Without the directors in between.
sometimes just get rid of the director and then bring it in and show them what we do, you know? Because it's also a way of showing the director what we actually can. So, because I often think that, for instance, when we work together, we're scenographer, actors, writers in my workshop. What we do is dramaturgy and directing. And by doing that, we're actually showing what we think about the text aesthetically also.
No, because it's interesting, because I mean, in my I've changed country and I traveled a lot, and so I don't consider myself anymore just from one place. But for example, the things you said today, if I had met you when I was 21 years old, I would have fallen in love with you, because I come from a country where, you know, there is a tradition of there is a tradition of a relationship of the actor and the word, which is very declamative also, which is a very dominant aesthetics. So of course you have films and others, but it's a sort of, you have always to fight, you know, and you go to this theater school and you have to learn, you know, to take, you know, this, and you can open this book, you know, and you can read this, you know, like the dialogue. The dialogic play is a definition by polyvocality. Polyvocality suggests that the variety of language, strategies, voices, and structures, materials. So you go and you learn these things, you know. You have like in Piccolo Teatro in Milan, they do like on Monday, they do the tone of happiness. When everybody's happy, they talk like this. And they do, you know, on Tuesday they learn like the tones of sadness and so on.
It's fantastic. You remind me now of TV theater from Italy in the 70s,
It's awful
where
stuff.
you could hear the sounds.
You have to imagine that we're talking about a tradition where there were young actors imitating others, that they went around. It was still the Walkman at the time. They went around with the Walkman with the tape, and they were listening to this actor Carmelo Bene, you know, which is just reading stuff in this very sort of nonsensical, virtuoso way, which is like, you know, listening like to Mozart. And I hated that, right? But then you move.
But like,
You
if you
move.
look at that as a ready-made, if you look at that as an object, like something you can use, right?
Yes.
Then it's good fun.
It's but that's
Yeah.
that's the aspect about tradition and aesthetics, because then you move to Norway, and then I got a bit frustrated, because sometimes it's like, come on, let's play a bit. You know, then I found I found the sort of that there was also something that I was, you know, I realized that, I wish you could have just been exposed to some of this crap just to understand that you can really make yourself ridiculous. Because this is when we talked about, I mean, the aspect of as an actor to enjoy to be ridiculous, you know, to do stuff like, you know, I'm sitting here all the time, like, you know, I do this, you know, just because I want to do this, and I want to make myself ridiculous. And I think you know, sometimes Norwegian actors have this sort of, they don't want to be ridiculous, and that's why they want to understand everything. And I think it's a very important thing to be
Oh, yeah.
ridiculous. So if
Did you feel that when you were
No,
working?
I like the jump.
Right?
I just that I responded some
Immediately.
20 seconds
later,
yeah.
like with a delay.
So this
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
laughter.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah,
So-
but I'm curious. I mean, did you feel that the description of the Norwegian actor taking?
That
When you
The
worked
aesthetic.
in it, yeah.
avoiding the ridiculous.
Yes.
I
Some.
don't know. I don't know if this is the maybe maybe taking some stuff seriously. That's for sure. Yeah, taking also oneself seriously.
All right. Yeah.
Right. So that is why I appreciate this humor. But on the other hand, the humor, stressing the humor, but very specific humors, of course. But humor is many times it's a local thing. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, but there are other things that I find
Yeah,
interesting here. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, to conclude this thing about the don't you think that aesthetics, it has to be also about opening, like to be more sort of contaminated by try to include, be contaminated by other traditions that can sort of enrich the palette, the understanding
Yeah.
of the way one can work with static and text.
But also, of course, I'm very interested in how we're connected to the world, right? And the world is full of all these other aesthetics and ethics, because they're connected, I think. And to be able to do something in this world that isn't just about theater. I love theater, just about theater as well, but it has a limit, right? So, and then we have to have the ability to not just interact, but to be different aesthetics and to understand them. So that's why I think, the demasking of them and the being aware of them is a very big part of training of both being a writer and an actor.
Thank you. Tommy, I would like to hear a bit, because you have a very specific, from the way I know you, you always try to find, you work very much in sort of opening the creativity of the actor, right? And also, and this creativity, in my experience, you also work in the terms of text. I mean, you write a new script, and you sit there and write again, and with the actors, and find their own language. Also, this is also work on text. How do you see that aspect?
Yeah, but this is just in certain cases. Only in Norway. No, in the two cases, there was a lot of writing. And there I did very different projects. I did because when I did Shakespeare, I wasn't there rewriting him. Or when I worked on Chekhov, and so on. I mean, there are many writers which
you don't touch.
No, and I think it's a bad idea when you start to touch them. I mean, if you start rewriting them, you don't rewrite Chekhov. At least this is my, But I don't. It's not a conservative view. It's not because he's sacred, but because he is so good. I mean, and yeah.
So what makes?
But can I switch to something else that I encounter, and it is connected to this, because I thought, I focused on the act to work with text and speech and development. Yeah, I can tell you about the thing that happens most often to me, saying to the actors. I can see, let's say, two things that appear. One is like, okay, you were describing now some kind of mannerism, the way something is done, this different kind of conventions that appear in different countries, You simply find the actors talking in a specific way. You don't know exactly why they do that, and probably in Turkey is different than in Italy, and but in a way you recognize what a convention is. Okay. And so you encounter this everywhere. So you encounter and you ask yourself, okay, why is it so? So you question this. But on the other hand, there is this kind of, let's call it naturalization, or which started, of course, with this fight against theatricality at the end of the 19th century, and which brought to naturalism and realism and so on. And this idea to make things, to own things. You still hear in the 21st century, you hear this idea, and this is the ideology which is behind the education of the 20th century, which derives from Stanislavski, that you need to own the text. Well, I think that you don't need to own the text, because the text is a citation. And to understand the actor, that he or she is making a citation of someone's words. And if you realize that this is important, in which role you are standing, you are relating to what is being said by this person, written by that person. So this means that there is much more need, in my view.
It makes me think about the Greek tragedy when you talk. Like
about
yeah, but it's true.
Yes. No, I had 100 associations which I cannot tell you. Yeah. I have the trouble with saying, because I say just 1/10 of what goes through my mind. This is my continuous struggle. Okay, so I think that in the training of the actor, because there's so much stress of identification, of using all these techniques to go inside, to be authentic, you know, all this which I trained for many years. And there is lack of training of being in some other role, which is the role of the artist, and to understand what is detachment, what is the distance. Also Brechtian idea of, you know, is completely or very often very misunderstood. You know, it's interpreted as some kind of cold distance, as a style, as declamating in certain way, which it doesn't have anything to do with Brecht. So, what I'm trying to say is, yesterday I mentioned the prompter. Okay, so what was happening when the prompt, and usually I give this example, because I think it's an important thing. If the prompter is here, so I'm playing some important role. We had, this is like 100 years ago, we had 3 or 5 rehearsals to do Lear or to do Hamlet, okay?
Yes.
So it's impossible for me to know the lines, okay? But I know very much the story. I get the story. I mean, I know the point of it, okay? And I'm here, and I'm here, and I see what is going on right now. And now the prompter is saying the words that this character, which I'm playing, is saying. And we all hear these words. And I'm saying these words, and I am relating to these words as much as everyone else is relating to these words in this very moment. And this brought to, I think, to incredible performances, to the excitement which might be very rare today. Of course, it brought also to catastrophes, you know, it could bring to, but there was a quality which many times nowadays theater artists are searching for, you know, because there was a relating to something, to the text of everyone present, including the actor who is at this moment speaking this text. And this relating in this moment to what is being said, this is something that usually the training lacks.
Yeah.
Because there is this idea of knowing things, of learning things, and then I'm saying something that I think I know, and I know why I'm doing and saying something such a way, and the audience doesn't have a clue why someone is saying something in a certain way. This is just one thing, and there are many other things connected to the work on text. And so I think that the approach is not I'm stressing this many times, if there is a text, especially if it is a text which is almost like poetry, or it is really good text, you know, don't make it your own. I don't give this direction absolutely to the actor. Make it your own. No, it's not yours, okay? It's much better than you would say it. Yeah, right. So make a citation, relate to it.
There's also another way of looking at it, this object philosophy, right? They're looking at everything as something in itself. So the text is something in itself. And I need to listen to the text to find out what the text is saying to me. It's not.
Yes, absolutely. But then there is this other thing, which is also, I think, a training that is needed, and it is an understanding of, for example, what you were saying, like just the playing with different, what would you say, qualities or characteristics, or is it just exploring, is the way you are exploring space, is the way you are exploring your own body, is the way you are exploring colors or forms, it's this same way that you are exploring the expressive means of your language. So this is something, of course, which I can relate to, yeah. But there is something else that usually I also don't meet in trainings, acting trainings, and it is that when we talk, that when people talk about something, something they know very well, it can be an event that happened to you, or in something that about your family, or something that you like to do, or whatever. So that people start to be very articulated. They know what they are speaking about, and they are very free in speaking about, and they can speak about this in different sequences. They can start from here to there, or they can start also from there to here, or from there to there. So it is almost like having a net which exists in the brain. There is connections, and you can start from any connection, and it will lead you to all the other connections. This is when you really know something. Okay, and this is when you are listening to an exciting lecture. You see this. You don't see that this guy, or whoever, this woman or whatever, goes from. It's not a cause and effect, or sequence of things, but it is a net.
Yes.
And so when I suggest to the actors to, there are different strategies and ways of doing this, but to come to the point that there are such complexes or sources of, or let's say some such nets, that that the actor is capable of doing this same thing with the story. So, in other words, that you might, if necessary, also stop the performance. I like the stopping of the performance, by the way. And this is something I miss in Norway, because if I was here, I'm usually part of the performance, and if this is what I miss, because if I was here, I would be stopping the performance. I would be making it better and better every evening. But anyway, also stopping Chekhov, and speaking about what this character actually, what is the point of this, and I can knowing the links, knowing and trying to, I'm not saying, I'm not now describing this clearly enough,
No, you're describing very clearly.
Yeah. So I can see these two things. That, there can be a training of the actor of having this thing in the name of what you are standing here right now, or what is the point of this character, and so on and so on.
We discussed this yesterday when we did this reading. I was working with the actors, and it was like this we were talking about, to try to not interpret the text, but to make the point of the text and to relate to the text. So it's a very good point, and it's a thing that that is part of a way. It again, I think, is ideology and aesthetics that come together as a consequence of a way of training and understanding acting, and sometimes, when you refer about Brecht, is also because we don't understand what we import. We import the aesthetic result. Sometimes you see something that maybe it's interesting, and then you call that Brecht, and then you try to imitate that form, but you don't understand how you're relating to the material, what you're actually doing. So this is a problem. I mean, generally everywhere with when you import acting, this has happened also with Stanislavski. Stanislavski has traveled a lot, met different countries, different aesthetics, also that were context that were established there, and has been sort of adopted in different ways. It's a problem of.
For example, probably there is no workshop that it wouldn't happen to me to speak about this so-called fourth wall, which was that there is a lack of understanding why someone, more than 100 years ago, started to use this strategy.
Yes.
So that this is not a normal thing. It's not normal at all. It's abnormal.
It's like directing isn't normal, and that's also invented. I mean, we had theater long before that. We had directors, right?
I think that this idea that I can hear about directing is very old-fashioned. Directing has been around since shamans, in the very early.
This is an interesting discussion.
Yeah, but I'm not saying, but the directing implies, since, so there is an idea in arts, for example, the authorship, the idea that arts are connected to authorship is an idea which we can track when it starts. The genius idea, it starts in the Renaissance, in those years. But the 20th century is very much connected to. So I think we should go a few steps in the back and research our own concepts that we are using. So, for example, the idea, the classical idea, you know. But when I say classical, I don't mean classical in terms of artistic classics, but I mean just the classical conventional idea that is not reflected about directing. I think it is old-fashioned and it will soon be gone, because it's
Agree.
not necessary. I don't identify myself with this kind of, at all. I can do it, I did it, but it's not what I find inspiring. So it is the idea of the director, 20th century director, the big guy with strong voice, who knows exactly what wants the other people to do for, to actually execute his wishes or something
And
like
when
that.
the microphone was invented, even smaller guys could direct.
Yeah.
And as you
Yeah.
and as we hear from what you're talking there, they're usually guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is really cool. That is why it's absolutely this idea.
In this school, we are educating playwrights and directors, and for years now, not only the majority, but for some years, all the students of directing have been male, and all the
Yeah.
students of playwriting have been female.
But this is not the case at my school. I had more female directors than male directors, and I have female theater directors, students who are incredibly successful internationally, and so I.
But we do
Yeah.
too. But they're educated in the Netherlands, so they're in Holland
yeah.
or Sweden
Yeah.
in doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
or
I just-
Russia.
Russia, yeah. I just wanted, because I think it's when I came into theatre, I was and my first meeting with theatre was this very sort of how you always break things down, right? You break things down into acts, and then you break it down into scenes, and then you break it down into beats, and then situations, and then lines, and then the actors working with that line. And for me, it was a strange thing, because for me, the text is always an organism. It's a living, breathing organism that has a behavior and is interconnected. And often I found that also, this is not another thing I find, that often we lose the sight of that underlying kind of pulsating structure when we're working. And I wonder whether you have any thoughts about that. How can we, I always try and look for that. I mean, it's not even composition or juxtaposition, it's that kind of organic web or rhizomatic kind of processes that goes on in the text.
Yes. Lars-Erik, do you want to say something about this? Or not?
I think that directors are always worried about not being very artistic or very special. And if a play is written like Jon Fosse is written, the lines are short or sometimes they're long, and in the beginning everybody would play Fosse very slowly, because it's like you get a sense of the things go slow, and then maybe you do something else, and you always want to do something else. So if you get a play and you detect that, you discover that, oh, there is a system here, oh, I'm going to break that system.
Yeah.
And then something is lost. Not letting the playwright and the text getting through the way that the playwright and the text wants.
But sometimes that could be a really great meeting, though.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'm not
obviously,
saying that.
yeah.
I think that collision is also interesting. But what I find sometimes is that we're more interested in breaking it down or deconstructing it, or than this organic kind of.
The meeting with the organism,
Yes,
which is the text in
yes.
this
What-
holistic
What does it actually
volume.
do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I mean, Lehmann was mentioned the first day, right? Here.
Francis
So
Lemon, yeah.
yes. Yeah, so there's this question: what is first in the theater? Is the playwright first, the text first? Why, is the actor first? So if there is a value, I think of
Is the audience first?
the audience first, and well, the audience in my view, important for something else in the artistic process, and it is the understanding that the artist creates from the role of the receiver. So the artist creates from the role of the audience. This is usually not understood in the creative process. There's this idea, again, because of we live in the narcissistic, society. There's this, idea of self-expression, of being unique, and so on. And so there is, and actors many times are, preoccupied, and artists, and directors,
And
as you
playwrights.
said, and playwright about, so it's about me, and now I will express myself. And if there's this, express means like pressing, So I will express. I give this,
The juice.
example of the toothpaste, that tooth. I will express myself, and thinking that when I will express myself, then I will be fulfilled. And I express myself, and I'm not fulfilled, because it's not the point of the artistic process, and which has a lot to do with being in the role of the receiver, and already experiencing what will be the effect of the work. I'm looking forward to what will, It's like when we were children doing stuff, and we were excited because when people will get in, when they will see, they will be excited, and so on, so on, so on, so on. So the children do it. And you stop doing it actually because of the education. So sometimes I agree very much with Tolstoy, who fought this professionalism, who said, come on, do some normal job, get away from the arts, because you bring and in acting it is so. This is the acting festival. Come on, I mean, the acting became so interesting in the 20th century because of the business and so on. And this means that there is so much trash in this, that so much misinformation, so much,
Yeah.
And basically what you need to do, you need to then work all the time with this, with so many ideologies, misconceptions or misinterpretations, or and yeah.
But now I just want to open for a few questions if you have them, and then we have lunch. So is there someone that wants to ask something about also the theme?
I find it very confusing, all this.
That's good.
Yes, so
It's your fault.
Yes, I
you
know.
mentioned ownership. If I am to live in the moment and situation, try to at least truthfully created by the playwright, if that's the intent, I have to make these words. I
You
don't
see?
know, spur from some inside. But I do see your point or your side of it. Told me like, but you're talking about creating my first meeting with the text on stage, and that's what you want the audience to see. That I am discovering or like creating this relationship with the text while I'm on stage. Do the audience then see that? Do they see simply a guy who doesn't know his lines, or that's where it gets confusing?
Yeah, of course it's confusing because I cannot, we would need some time, but a lot of time. But what you started with, it's an ideology, and I just invite to reflect on ideologies. Let's be clear. Ideologies are necessary in order to become an artist. Because basically you become an artist by identifying with a collective artistic ideology. Otherwise you cannot say, and oh, I'm an artist, I feel an artist, I am an artist. And I'm not saying about kind of artistic proclamation. I'm just citing basically Otto Rank, who wrote about this artistic process. So it's identifying with collective ideology, and then of course you have troubles with fighting this same ideology, you know, and try to emancipate from it. So there's nothing wrong with ideologies. They are necessary. We cannot avoid them. But it's just, am I aware of this ideology? Do I know also about the alternatives? So what you were saying in the very beginning, you know, it's clear that you didn't find out it. You came to a school or to some teacher, and this teacher told you that. You didn't find out this stuff.
Told me what?
What you were saying in the beginning. It's not your invention. It's something you were told.
Well, it's something
And
I've
so-
seen on stage.
No, it's something.
Because if I've seen a true moment on stage, that actor or actress has ownership and has created truthfulness somehow.
Can I just let's bring it just to bring it back to Castanio, since that's like the only pole we have to hold on to, right? So he's saying in these new strategies that we're discussing here that discovering meaning is of the essence, not presenting meaning. Yeah. So and that's no presenting or producing meaning. That's already there that we give to you. That's like a part of the classic tradition. There's a meaning there, we find it, and we give it to you. In these strategies, it's more about discovering the meaning. And of course, a very important part of the actor's work is to discover that meaning. And another word that he doesn't use so much, but I think I would like to use myself, is becoming, that you're constantly becoming something else. So it's not like I found something and I stay in it. You started with something, but you're also becoming something more or else or different as you go along. And this kind of more, this is a different way of producing text, and a different way of acting. I don't know, did that make any sense for you? And that means you can also shift in and out of that ideology that, according to Castanio, that Tommy was talking about, into another ideology, and then discover, doing the demasking of it, the understanding, oh, they are different, in that process, and showing that discovery to the audience. So it's a... So should we give an example?
Discovering meaning. I agree that a human being is discovering all the time, becoming something new all the time. Is that what you're talking about? That you want that to happen on stage?
It's like when you produce an understanding, right? And then you reproduce it. Yeah, you copy it. That's another thing that's been very. I think you might agree with me.
Can we do an example? Can you tell
Yeah.
me tell me something? I mean, I'm in front of Lars-Erik. You tell me what I have to say to Lars-Erik. I will give you an example. Tell me what I have to say to Lars-Erik. Whatever.
I'm confused.
Lars-Erik.
What are you talking about?
I'm giving an example. Do what
That's
I'm saying.
example.
I'm saying you.
Yeah.
Ah, this, okay. Yeah. This was great.
You see, okay, and you will come to this believability, okay? Okay, so you see, this. I suppose you found this truthful, or because he found it truthful, okay? Did I care about being truthful? No, I didn't care about being truthful at all. Okay, so I trained in these methods that lead to truthfulness and authenticity and blah, 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 for I don't know how many years. It's not that I'm not interested in truthful. This was the thing that I was most interested in of all. I wanted to see truthful emotion on stage because I saw only fake emotions, and I still do, you know? Mostly actors fake, you know? And it was something that hurt me very much, right? Okay. So, but the way is, in my experience, the most effective and creative way is not at all in the techniques that they are, you know, already established, although I got really a lot, because they lead also to cliches, stereotypes, you know, and they don't invite you to see other ideologies, but they invite you to create just a style, or they identify this specific expression with the style, and this is something that I didn't like. You know, and that is why because I didn't want to belong the method acting community, or Michael Chekhov community, or Brechtian community, or whatever community. You know, I didn't identify with just one, you know, but I was interested in what are the principles on which something is based on. Okay, and so, okay, you want
But
to
maybe
do
there's
the
some other
example?
that would like that. Maybe there's some other
Now
would comment
we
on
have
this.
We are so over time that
But this
I
is
get
fun,
the
right?
sides. We have a lot of questions. Let's take two
Come
last
on.
questions and then we
or comments,
we-
or comments.
or comments or whatever.
Join the discussion. Yeah, go
Yeah.
on.
It's more of a switch between comment and reference towards different things that have been said. I was thinking both like yesterday we talked about what's the word in English?
Prompter.
Prompter.
Prompter that you talked about, and then I was thinking about with the group and how they like in the 70s developed this that they were the one who kind of started with having the text in the ear of the actor, so they wouldn't know before what they would get into the ear, and then that would create like the immediate reaction towards hearing and then getting it out there, and then like after a while also like Willem Dafoe would get so good, so Lisbeth Lecomte sits kind of like during the performances and fucks up so that Willem Dafoe will get touched off his thing, and this is like what we're talking about. I'm trying to make a link here both between text, preparation of text, working, and kind of negotiation, and then and I was also thinking about it yesterday or the day before in Hayes, where you were talking about the kind of the authenticity of the meeting of the machine, and that as like, because in one way created a kind of confusion of is different when you're talking about the algorithm as the some kind of intelligence or not, and the reference towards that of before they had technology to do it, and then that's kind of in one way it became a confusion about is it the same or is it a different thing, and it kind of ended up after the discussion and Mental asked you some questions that it is actually the negotiation within the performer, and you also said that you have come to this place because you've rehearsed so much on performing in a situation when you can't rehearse but you're doing it live.
Yeah.
So this comes back to like actor skills actually, and that this is also what the group worked with so long with, like how can they create the skill that is not it's based on preparation but not based on coming to a point where it happens all the time exactly the same, but every time happening a skilled negotiation happening, and that's why I would like now to come in with towards these questions of what is actually the thing happening, and I would also like to comment slash arrest or put in context, like you said, Tony, that you are not owning the text, but you're doing a citat, and then I would like make the difference between a citat and a reference, because citat is like if you use it also in artistic work, a citat is maybe a soundtrack that you put on a film to make the film better, but it doesn't necessarily have a reason to be there other than I want to put makeup on my thing, and but the reference would always not be really a reference if it actually doesn't create a negotiating space.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a thing that
Yeah.
starts to evaporate in between that, and that's the thing that the audience can enter into, and that's the really important thing between a citat and a reference is the audience negotiation. And if you put that into context and say that what the actor is doing is not citating,
Like quoting.
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 it is referencing Checo, and then what's happening is the audience being in the reference. Then you're talking about the actor as a moving machine and the performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you are absolutely right, and the citation I just it's a wrong word actually. I mean it's a quote.
Yeah.
I just gave the example of like quote because when you quote, for example, a sentence or someone said this, you quote, you don't pretend that it's your own. So it implies a distance to it. I'm quoting. You know what this guy said? He said this and this and this and this and this. And I meant only this as an example, but actually it is exactly what you are describing. This is the point. It is relating, referring, and so on.
You can see some of that work in what's the guy did the Glassmanageriet?
Johannes Dahl. Johannes Dahl.
Johannes Dahl. Do anybody know his work? He's also done Lygre on the National Theatre. But especially the Glassmenagerie was just a really, really beautiful performance. And 2 of the actors actually nominated for a Hedda Prize, not for the job they're doing quite good, but for what he does with their work, because he's introducing that gap between the text, the actor, and the audience. It's really moving.
That was very impressive
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
So if you're really curious about to make it concrete, you need to see it. Yeah, yeah.
Now we really have to stop. I really appreciate that we want to talk more. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great
This
when
was good fun.
it's good to stop on a high note. So thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Lars Erik and Tale and Tommy. So I'll see
And
you
thank you,
tomorrow for
audience.
the last day.